There are wounds that never bleed, bruises that never show, screams that echo only within the corridors of the soul. And you, yes you, have known such wounds. You've walked with a broken heart disguised behind a smile. You've sat at tables where you were unloved, unheard and unseen. You've given your loyalty to people who betrayed you with a smile, handed them your trust like a delicate glass, only to watch them drop it, laughing as if it never mattered. And yes, you've never mattered. They took from you and felt no remorse. They wounded you and felt no sorrow. They created storms in your heart and walked away as if they hadn't left destruction in their wake. And the most painful part, they acted as if you were the problem. You who only loved too much. You who forgave too often. You who stayed silent while your soul cried for justice. But justice has never been about loud declarations or public vengeance. Divine justice whispers. It doesn't knock at the door. It enters when it's least expected. And it doesn't merely return what was taken. It multiplies the emotion, mirrors the cruelty, and makes the proud taste the very agony they served cold to others. When God moves, He doesn't just balance the scales. He awakens the conscience. And that, dear soul, is a torment deeper than any blade. Have you ever asked why the people who caused you pain seem to flourish while you suffer in silence? Have you wondered why heaven remains quiet when you cry out for recompense? What if the silence is not absence, but preparation? What if heaven is not ignoring your cries, but storing your tears as evidence? What if God in His wisdom is crafting not a punishment, but a revelation that will pierce their heart in the very places they once pierced yours? There is a moment, a terrifying, holy moment, when those who inflicted pain are made to feel it, not through violence, not through revenge, but through life, through sudden stillness, through inexplicable sorrow, through the collapse of the very false peace they built on your suffering. And when that day comes, they will not remember what you said. They will remember what they did, and it will haunt them. They will sit in the same silence they once forced upon you. They will cry with the same tears they mocked on your face, and they will beg God for mercy the way you once begged them for kindness. This is not about wishing pain upon others. No, that would make us like them. This is about trusting that the same God who allowed your tears will allow their awakening. This is about divine alignment, about the echo of justice returning from the depths of eternity. You are not forgotten. Your pain is not ignored. Your silence is not in vain. What if I told you that their comfort is temporary, that their smiles will fade into restless nights, that God is not finished, that He never was? So now, as we step deeper into this truth, let us explore the silent but certain ways God returns pain to its sender, not with rage, but with righteous fire, not to destroy, but to reveal. And when revelation comes, it does not ask permission. There's a strange kind of justice that unfolds, not in courtrooms, not through arguments, but in the quiet corridors of the mind. You see, when someone wounds you deeply, when they play with your trust and tear your spirit without remorse, they don't always see the damage in that moment. They walk away unbothered, smirking, confident. They think they've won. They think their words meant nothing to you, their betrayal went unnoticed, their silence didn't echo like thunder in your chest. But memory has a way of sneaking up when the noise dies down. When the applause fades, the distractions dissolve, and the soul is left alone with the truth. At first, they'll sleep peacefully, laugh with their friends, go about life as if nothing happened. But over time, sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once, certain images begin to surface. A place, a moment, a word, a look in your eyes when they said what they said, the trembling in your voice they chose to ignore, the tear you wiped quickly when they turned their back. These fragments, once buried, rise like smoke through the cracks of their hardened heart, and suddenly they remember. Not the version of events they told others, but the raw, unfiltered reality of what they did. The part they kept locked away so they wouldn't have to face themselves. That's the beginning of the haunting. The mirror of memory doesn't reflect their version of the story. It reflects your pain, unapologetically. And that mirror doesn't ask permission. It appears during quiet drives. It interrupts joyful moments with a shadow of shame. It shows up in dreams in the faces of others, even in the eyes of their own children when they unknowingly repeat the same hurt. What they thought they buried now lives with them, and it speaks. It reminds them of how they dismissed your feelings like dust on their sleeve. It replays the moment they twisted your sincerity into weakness, and worse, it begins to make them feel what they made you feel. Powerless, ashamed, empty. But unlike you, they have no innocence to hold on to, because deep down they knew. They knew you didn't deserve that pain. They knew you were only trying to love them, support them, believe in them, and still they chose cruelty. That awareness burns hotter than any flame. You won't be there to see it. And maybe that's what hurts most, that you suffered so visibly while they suffer in secret. But don't let that fool you. The suffering is real, perhaps even more unbearable, because it doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within, from the weight of their own conscience, a voice they can't silence with pride or denial. They'll try to escape it, distract themselves, pour themselves into work, seek out people who don't remind them of you, but nothing works. Because the human heart, when it's confronted with its own guilt, becomes its own prison, and no door swings open without repentance. Their memory will not be a scrapbook of joyful moments. It will be a gallery of every time they chose ego over empathy, and in the silence of their soul they will start to feel it. Not just remember it, but feel it. They will start to feel it, not just remember it, but feel it. The same sadness, the same loneliness, the same hollowness they once dismissed in you. That's how God works. Not always in thunder or punishment, but in remembrance. He allows the mind to become the battlefield. He allows the heart to become the lesson, and he allows memory to be the justice. The haunting doesn't happen all at once. It unfolds slowly, painfully, like a mirror fogging up with truth, until they can no longer look away. That is the power of the mirror of memory. It doesn't punish from the outside, it torments from within. And it never breaks until the lesson is learned. Some pain isn't loud. It doesn't come from screaming matches or explosive arguments. It comes from silence, strategic, piercing silence. It comes from being constantly talked over, dismissed, or overlooked. It's in the eye rolls, the sarcastic tones, the moments when your presence was tolerated, not valued. You were made to feel like your thoughts didn't matter, like your presence was a burden, like your worth was conditional on how useful or entertaining you could be to them. It was slow, almost invisible, a daily erosion of your self-esteem. And they did it casually, often with a smile, sometimes even laughing, never once thinking about the damage they were causing. But what they didn't realize was that God never sleeps on the broken-hearted. He never turns a blind eye to those crushed under the weight of emotional cruelty. There is a divine symmetry to how he allows people to experience the very emotions they inflicted on others. And when that season comes, the same individuals who once dismissed you will find themselves trapped in situations that make them question their own worth. They'll walk into rooms and feel invisible. They'll speak and be ignored. They'll give their best and still be made to feel like they're not enough, and it will break them, not because the world suddenly turned cruel, but because the world is showing them what it feels like. The same dismissal, the same invalidation, the same hollow feeling they carved into you will become the shadow that follows them everywhere. They will enter conversations and feel irrelevant. They will pour love into others and get only silence in return. They'll seek validation and instead be met with cold indifference, the same coldness they once wrapped you in. And it won't make sense to them at first. They'll wonder why nothing feels secure, why no one truly sees them. But eventually the realization will start to dawn, not all at once, but piece by painful piece. They'll remember how they used to treat you, the way they cut you off mid-sentence, the way they made you feel small in front of others, the way they turned their back when you needed emotional support. And the shame of it will sink in, not because someone points it out, but because now they are living it. The most painful part of this kind of suffering is not just the loneliness, it's the internal questioning. Am I enough? Why do I feel so unwanted? What's wrong with me? And it's the same inner dialogue you once battled through. The same spiral of self-doubt they once pushed you into is now the prison they're trying to escape. And they will finally understand, not intellectually, but emotionally, deeply, spiritually, how cruel and crushing those moments were for you. This is not revenge, this is correction. A divine form of education. God does not punish out of spite. He allows a mirror to be placed before those who hurt others, and in that mirror, He shows them not who they believed themselves to be, but who they were to someone else. When someone experiences the very void they created in another, it creates a crack in their pride, in their self-perception. That's when the heart begins to break open. And brokenness is often the first step toward true change. What they once mocked will become their reality. What they once downplayed will now be the emotion they carry quietly through the day. And when that happens, they will think of you, not because they miss you, but because they now understand. They finally feel what they made you feel, that hollow, stinging ache of being insignificant to someone you cared about. And that realization will not be brief, it will stay. Because that's how God writes justice into the story of the wounded, not with lightning, but with lived experience. And nothing touches more deeply than feeling the weight of your own actions reflected back at you. There's a kind of restlessness that medicine can't fix, a heaviness in the soul that sleep can't relieve. And it begins slowly, almost imperceptibly, a shift in their nights. Once, they laid their heads on their pillows and fell into sleep without guilt, without second thoughts. While you were wide awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word they said that broke your spirit, they were at peace. While you cried yourself to sleep, they laughed, parted, and moved on. They carried no burden because they never acknowledged the weight of what they did to you. But rest doesn't last when it was built on the brokenness of another. You see, God has a way of disturbing the comfortable, especially those who have wounded others without remorse. The very peace they once enjoyed will become foreign to them. Their minds will no longer be quiet. They'll toss and turn, plagued by thoughts they used to brush away. It won't be one big event that breaks their calm. It will be the slow invasion of unease. They won't know why they're always anxious, why the laughter feels hollow, why no amount of distraction silences the turmoil inside. What used to bring them joy will now bring them nothing but boredom. The silence they once used to ignore your pain will now echo with their own. They'll seek entertainment, conversation, validation, but nothing will settle them, because this restlessness isn't circumstantial, it's spiritual. It's God's way of allowing their own soul to feel the dissonance they caused in yours. And it's not just sleepless nights, it's emotional discontent, the kind that seeps into relationships, routines, even their sense of purpose. They'll feel like something's off, that no matter what they do, they can't quite feel satisfied, and they won't be able to explain it, because they've forgotten the origin of their peace, your silence, your forgiveness, your patience. And now, with that foundation removed, nothing feels stable. They're walking through life as if everything's fine, but inside there's a war, a quiet storm, a tension that won't ease. This is what happens when someone causes pain and never takes responsibility for it. The spirit holds on to what the mind tries to forget. Their heart knows the truth, even if their ego refuses to admit it. And slowly, that hidden truth rises, like a tide that can't be pushed back. Every hurt they caused, every dismissive glance, every cruel word begins to echo back louder and louder, not through your voice, but through their own thoughts. They'll wonder why they can't focus, why they're always tired, why they feel this emptiness even when they're surrounded by people. And eventually they'll come to realize, this is the same heaviness I put on someone else. It may take months, it may take years, but no soul escapes the reach of divine accountability, especially when that soul was once the reason another wept behind closed doors. There's a sacred kind of discomfort that only God can send, not to destroy, but to awaken. It comes not in punishment, but in reflection. He touches their rest, not with rage, but with a whisper that won't leave them alone. Remember what you did. Remember who you hurt. And no matter how hard they try to run, the whisper follows them. Rest becomes rare. Peace becomes unfamiliar. And suddenly, they realize that what they once took for granted, the ability to sleep, to laugh freely, to feel content, has been stripped away. Not by you, not by revenge, but by God, who defends the hearts of those who suffer in silence. And that restlessness, it's only just beginning. There is no pain more humbling than craving the very love you once carelessly rejected. And this, more than anything, becomes one of the deepest consequences for those who mistreated you. Because, in the beginning, they never truly saw the worth of what you gave. Your love was constant. Your presence was faithful. Your kindness was free-flowing, unconditional, and sincere. You were there in ways no one else was. You made them feel important when the world ignored them. You forgave things others would have walked away from. You believed in them when they didn't believe in themselves. But instead of being cherished, your kindness became invisible. It wasn't honored. It was used. It wasn't appreciated. It was expected. They didn't see your love as a gift. They saw it as a duty. The way you showed up, listened, helped, gave, stayed. It was never truly valued, just absorbed, consumed, and forgotten. And that is where their downfall begins. Because one day they will reach for that same kindness in someone else, and it will not be there. They will find themselves in situations where they need comfort and no one offers it. They will stumble and look around for support only to be met with indifference. Their mistakes will be judged, not forgiven. Their flaws will be mocked, not understood. And in that moment, the memory of your love will come rushing back like a flood. But it will be too late. They'll begin to notice how different the world feels without you, the world you shielded them from with your patience, the chaos you absorbed with your empathy, the loneliness you chased away with your presence. All of that gone. And the world without that love, it's cold, it's harsh, it's hollow. They will try to find another version of you, someone who will see the brokenness in them and still choose to stay, someone who will answer their calls even when they don't deserve it, someone who will fight for them when they keep pushing away. But what they will find instead are people who do not carry your heart, people who give up quickly, people who don't tolerate emotional immaturity, people who make them feel disposable, just as they once made you feel. And then it hits them. What they once had was rare. The late-night check-ins, the thoughtful words, the way you noticed even their silence. That was love in its purest form, and they threw it away, thinking there would always be more. But God has a way of opening their eyes, not through lectures, but through absence. He doesn't scream at them about their mistake. He simply removes the one who was sent to bless them, and then, slowly, he allows them to feel the void. They'll remember the little things. The way you used to say their name, the way you prayed for them even when they didn't ask, the way your love didn't require them to be perfect. And those memories will ache, not because you're gone, but because they now understand what they lost. They will long for you, not in a romantic way, not always in a dramatic realization, but in the quiet moments, when they're sick and no one shows up, when they're overwhelmed and no one offers a hand, when they finally need someone who understands the language of pain and doesn't run away. They'll search the world for that feeling, that safety, that grace, but what they won't realize is that kindness like yours only comes once, and it must be honored when it arrives, not after it's gone. What they once took for granted will become the one thing their soul aches for, and that ache, it won't fade. Time has a way of revealing what pride tries to conceal, and for those who have wronged you, who walked over your heart with muddy feet and smiled like they did nothing wrong, time becomes the quiet judge that cannot be bribed, rushed, or manipulated. You see, when someone causes pain and feels no guilt, when they crush your spirit and then carry on with life as though you were just a momentary inconvenience, they think the damage they caused will fade like smoke in the wind. They believe your tears were temporary, your heartbreak forgettable, your silence irrelevant. But what they fail to understand is that time does not forget. It remembers everything, and it waits. God doesn't always respond immediately. He's not impulsive like us. He doesn't strike when emotions run high. He waits until all things are aligned, until every thread is in place, and then, when the noise of their life begins to quiet, when the distractions are no longer enough to fill the emptiness, he lets time speak, not with rage, but with undeniable clarity. At first, nothing happens. They move on. They find new relationships, new circles, new joys. They convince themselves that you were just a phase, a lesson they taught, rather than one they needed to learn. But that's the trick of time. It's patient. And it allows people to build false peace on shaky ground. It lets them climb high, not realizing that their elevation is setting the stage for a harder fall. And then one day, perhaps years later, it begins. That relationship they thought was better than yours, it begins to rot from the inside out, not because of anything you did, but because the same selfishness, pride, and cruelty they exercised with you has followed them. The patterns they refuse to see repeat themselves. The choices they refuse to own rise back up, and the face staring back at them in the mirror starts to resemble someone they never intended to become. That's the whisper of time catching up. They will walk into circumstances that mirror what they once put you through. Only this time, they're the ones on the receiving end. They will be ghosted, overlooked, betrayed. They will give their heart to someone who only plays with it. They will sit in rooms feeling unwanted, unloved, unimportant. The exact emotions you used to wrestle with because of them. But time doesn't just repeat situations, it matures the pain. By the time their heart begins to shatter, they are not as resilient as you were. They have built a life of ego and comfort, not of depth and humility. So when the pain comes for them, it cuts deeper, because now they've tasted both sides. The illusion of being untouchable, and the reality of being just as vulnerable. That's when their mind goes back to you. They'll remember how you stayed quiet, how you tried so hard, how you gave chances no one else would have. They'll remember how they laughed when you cried, how they made fun of your emotions, how they blamed you when they were the ones lying. Those memories won't just be mental, they'll be spiritual, because the soul holds on to what the ego tries to erase, and it will hit them. You never deserved it. That's the revelation time delivers. Not just regret, but recognition. The recognition that they weren't strong when they hurt you, they were weak. That they weren't victorious, they were broken. And God in His mercy didn't strike them down, He just waited. He allowed them to live long enough to face themselves fully. But here's the beauty of divine justice. You didn't have to expose them. You didn't have to ruin them. You didn't have to scream for payback. All you had to do was keep living, keep healing, keep trusting, and time did the rest. The same days and months that seemed to forget your suffering were silently working on your behalf. Every moment that felt wasted in grief, every season you thought God ignored you. He was watching the clock. He knew when the tables would turn. He knew when their actions would catch up with them. He knew that time would become the very tool that undoes the illusion of their innocence. And now they sit with the weight of what they did. Not because you made them pay, but because time made them remember. Time made them feel. Words are not weightless. They don't vanish after they're spoken. They linger, sometimes for years, engraved in the soul of the one who received them. And you, more than anyone, know what it feels like to carry words like wounds. You've stood in front of people who were supposed to love you. Family, friends, partners. And instead of comfort, they offered criticism. Instead of understanding, they gave sarcasm. Instead of grace, they handed you shame. And the worst part? They delivered those words so effortlessly, so casually, as if they were tossing away scraps instead of slicing through your heart. They called you weak when you were just vulnerable. They mocked your silence when you were trying not to cry. They made jokes about your pain, labeled your honesty as drama and your boundaries as selfishness. They told others stories that twisted the truth, made you look crazy while they stood in the light of false innocence. And you took it all. Those harsh words, those false narratives, those cold accusations. You swallowed the humiliation and tried to move forward, even when their words rang louder in your ears than your own thoughts. But there is a divine irony that unfolds with time. God never allows cruelty to echo without eventually returning the sound to its source. The very phrases they used to belittle you will one day be spoken to them. And when those words hit them, they will cut deeper. Because they will come from voices they value, people they trust, and in moments when they are most vulnerable. Imagine the one who called you too emotional, breaking down in front of someone who responds with, "You're overreacting." Picture the person who told you you're not enough hearing the same phrase when they finally risk being real with someone, or the one who laughed at your insecurities being mocked for their own in front of others. It won't come from you, you won't have to say a word, but life will make sure they hear it. This is not coincidence, this is divine justice. God understands that some people cannot learn through silence or suffering alone. Some require a mirror made of words, a repetition of their own cruelty to understand what they've done. So He allows them to be put in situations that reflect their past behavior. The very lines they used to diminish you will come back, wrapped in different voices but holding the same venom. And for the first time, they won't laugh. They won't feel powerful. They'll feel small. What once rolled off their tongue without thought will now echo in their minds long after it's said. The words that made you question your worth will now become the reason they question their own. And they won't be able to stop it. They will try to defend themselves, to explain away what was said, to ask for compassion, but just as they gave you none, life will withhold it from them. Because God is not cruel, He is just. He gives us opportunities to grow, But when we refuse to acknowledge the hurt we've caused, He makes sure we experience it. Their pride will be pierced by the sharpness of their own weapon. Their ego will crumble under the weight of their own cruelty. And when they finally sit in silence, not knowing how to respond to words that break them, they will remember the times you sat in that same silence, swallowing tears, too exhausted to defend yourself. That memory won't be an afterthought. It will be a revelation. They will realize that you didn't overreact. You were just human. That your tears weren't manipulation, they were pain. That your distance wasn't coldness, it was survival. And all of that will hit them only after the same words they once used come back to haunt them. This is not about revenge. This is about realization. When someone uses their mouth as a weapon, God ensures that one day they taste their own words. And that taste is bitter. The same phrases they used to destroy your peace will now be the ones that steal theirs. Their mouths gave the wound. Now their ears will carry the echo. There comes a moment in every story of betrayal, pain, and silent suffering when the scales of heaven begin to tip, not with fury, but with justice, not because you demanded it, but because God saw what you endured when no one else did. You didn't beg for revenge. You didn't scream at the skies or curse the ones who hurt you. You simply broke in silence. And it was in that silence, when your prayers had no words, when your tears had no audience, that heaven stood still and listened. Because God is not absent in suffering. He is closest to the broken-hearted. They didn't believe that when they hurt you. The ones who lied about you, belittled your worth, mocked your pain. They acted as if there were no eyes watching, as if your heartbreak was just a side effect of your own weakness. As if your kindness made you a fool. They thought the quietness of your response meant you were powerless. They mistook your restraint as surrender, but what they didn't realize is that while you were weeping, you were also being covered. You were being protected, restored, and prepared, because the God you serve does not abandon the wounded. He avenges them, and that vengeance, it doesn't always come with thunder and lightning. It doesn't need an audience. Sometimes the most powerful moves of God happen in secret. Sometimes He chooses to bless you publicly in front of those who once cursed your name. Other times He allows those who broke your spirit to watch it rise stronger than before. And nothing is more devastating to the ego of someone who tried to destroy you than to witness your comeback. A comeback carried not by your own hand, but by divine intervention. They will see you smile again, not the forced smile you used when you were breaking inside, but a genuine, peaceful smile. They'll watch you walk in a joy they never gave and a strength they never imagined you could have. And they will wonder how. How is it that the person they tried to crush is now rising with more grace, more wisdom, more favor? And the answer is simple. Because God defends the brokenhearted. God doesn't forget tears. He stores them. He doesn't ignore heartbreak. He heals it, then uses it to elevate. And when He moves on behalf of someone who is mistreated, the whole world begins to shift. Doors open, opportunities appear, relationships align. Your life, once shattered by the cruelty of others, starts to bloom in ways even you didn't expect. And those who broke you, they begin to feel the weight of what they did, not because you said anything, but because God shows them. He shows them in their loneliness, in their repeated patterns, in the failures they can't explain, and in the emptiness that no amount of pleasure can fill. Because God knows how to convict a heart without saying a word. He knows how to unravel pride with a whisper, and He knows how to restore His children in ways that silence every lie ever spoken against them. There will come a day, quiet, personal, undeniable, when they will sit with the realization that they didn't just hurt another human being. They hurt someone who was protected by heaven, someone who was walking through life with divine favor, even in their pain, someone who God was watching over when they thought no one was watching at all. That realization will change them. It will break through their excuses, their justifications, their false narratives, and it will humble them because they will see the truth. You didn't need to fight back. You didn't need to lower yourself to their level. You had God, and that was more than enough. In the end, they will not fear your revenge. They will fear your silence, because that silence wasn't weakness. It was surrender, not to them, but to God. And the one you surrendered to? He fights for those too tired to fight for themselves. He heals what others tried to destroy, and he builds from ruins stories of redemption, beauty, and justice. Because those who are broken by people are held by God, and God never lets his children bleed in vain. You may never receive an apology. You may never hear the words, "I was wrong," from the lips of those who tore you down. They might never admit the truth. They might continue to paint you as the villain in a story where you were the only one who tried to love, to understand, to hold on. But don't let that keep you stuck, because justice does not always come with an audience. Sometimes it comes in silence, in timing, in the quiet unraveling of the lives of those who used their power to crush what was pure. God saw it all. He saw when you bit your tongue to avoid conflict. He saw when you forgave again and again, hoping they'd finally see your heart. He saw when you cried yourself to sleep, trying to make sense of a love that only brought pain. And he saw when they walked away, smug and satisfied, never once looking back at the damage they caused. But heaven does not let suffering go unanswered. The people who made you feel worthless will one day feel that same weight in their own spirit. The ones who broke your heart will wake up with an ache in theirs, and the silence you endured will become the echo in their mind when no one answers their call for help. It's not cruelty, it's divine balance, because the pain they gave will become the lesson they cannot escape. And when they learn it, not through lectures but through living it, they will remember you, and it will be too late. But for you, it's not too late. Your story is not over. What they tried to break, God is rebuilding. What they tried to silence, God is amplifying. What they tried to bury, God is resurrecting. You are not the victim of their cruelty. You are the survivor of it, and not just a survivor, but a testimony. That you can go through hell and come out clothed in grace. That you can be forgotten by man, but remembered by God. Let them carry the weight of their own choices. Let time teach them what they refuse to learn through love. And as for you, walk in freedom, in peace, in healing. Because the one who defends the broken-hearted has already declared this: you will rise, and they will remember.